Hello everyone, welcome to the channel, or welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, I'm Jared. You're probably used to seeing programming content on my channel, but today we're doing something a little bit different. We are going to rank all of the ingredients in my mom's Christmas nuts and bolts mix. Now, this year we've got a bit of a different meta going on, loaded's a little different, so we want to make sure that, we're all playing the best we can play and making the most of this holiday season. So, without further ado, this is her nuts and bolts mix. One of the things that's signature about it is that it always seems to come in a Trails End tin. That's the popcorn that the Scouts Canada sells for their fundraisers. I don't know how long she's had all of these tins. Very long time, because I used to sell this stuff when I was in Scouts, and I'm in my 30s now. But let's get down to the tier rank here. Now, I've already got this loaded up. We've got, this year we have 11 ingredients. A bit of interesting overlap. Some things notably left out of the mix. So let's call those out first. We've noticed there's, in the tin that I've received so far, no hazelnuts. Odd to see them missing. They're not my favorite nut. They're okay. Definitely not personally missing them, but sort of surprised to see them gone. Also not a single Brazil nut in there. So that was a bit of a surprise to see as well. Usually there are at least a couple, but it could have just been this tin that I got didn't have any. They're not like the most common element. So without further ado, let's get started. We have our first ingredient here. Oh, come on. Okay, well, there we go. And that is what I assume we would call the nuts of the nuts, the bolts of the nuts and bolts. That is our pretzel sticks. Now the pretzel sticks, let's just be real here. They're S tier. It wouldn't be nuts and bolts without pretzel sticks. Nothing much to say there. Great ingredient. They take a bit of flavor. They add a bit of saltiness. Good texture. No complaints there. Next up, we have our Cheerios. Now Cheerios, again, they're the bolts of your nuts and bolts mix. Can't do without them. They have sort of a different texture that's not offered by any of the other ingredients. They take the seasoning really, really well. They're really flavorful. Definitely top tier. Any loadout you're building should have both of those in it. Now, next I'm going to do the pecan. And when I say the pecan, it's because this was the only one in this entire tin. Don't know how I only got one, but now I'm going to say pecans. Pecans aren't my favorite. They're good. They take the flavor really well, though, the sort of like grooviness of them. As far as nuts go, even though I'm not as big a fan of them, I'm gonna still give them B tier. They're still viable right now. Next up, let's do peanuts. So we've got peanuts. As far as distribution goes this year, we're not like overloaded with peanuts. Peanuts can be a very overpowering flavor that can sort of overpower any kind of nut mix. And I feel like this year peanuts did just fine. Really good amount of peanuts to everything else. So while I might rank them lower, if they were overpowering, I think they're alongside our pecans here. Now, what do we want to do next? Let's do these guys, the full pretzels, the mini pretzels, I guess is what you call those. Mini pretzels, they're in a bit of a trouble situation. They're really big. They don't really add more than the other pretzel variants that are in there. Said they're very sort of quintessential nuts and bolts ingredients. So They're definitely still viable, definitely belong in the mix. They're not the most memorable piece of them, so I'm gonna put them down in C tier. Now, next up, I'm gonna make maybe a controversial decision, but I'm gonna say Crispix. That's A tier. If you can even see from the coloration on those Crispix that like they pick up so much of the flavor from the seasoning, and they're just so crunchy. The design of them, the design of the Crispix with the little grooves and everything, they pick up the flavor. They stay crispy. Really awesome one. On that same topic though, I'm gonna take Chex. I'm gonna put them down in D tier. I think Chex are a poor man's Crispix. Um, they're just worse Crispix. They're not like bad, but they're, they add nothing to the mix. Same time, Shreddies. Shreddies, I think they're a solid B tier. They're not as good as Crispix. They do stay crunchy though. The flavoring, the sort of like more brand kind of flavor they have, doesn't really do it for me. But still a solid entry. That's not overpowering anything. Good composition in the mix here. Now we're down to Cashews, Almonds, and a new entry list this year. Let's talk about these guys. These have not been in previous years that I can remember. These are like big pretzel sticks that have been broken down. They certainly aren't S tier like they're like the smaller pretzel sticks. I think they're another B tier entry. They offer a little more of an interesting texture and stuff than the mini pretzels because they have a different size, and that just means different texture. They're maybe a little saltier. They're very salty, but they're broken down into small pieces so that they sort of fit in the mix really well. So I definitely think it's a good entry this year, even if it's not necessarily required, given that we have the smaller pretzel sticks as well as the mini pretzels. Now for our final two, we got these two nuts. So I'm a big cashew fan, but the cashews don't really take the flavoring as much as like the almonds do. So I'm gonna say cashews here, almonds here. Like if I had to give up one of the nuts, even though I like cashews, I think in the mix, I think they're adding less to the mix than these other nuts are. So I think that's how we shake out the almonds though. Just look at the color on them. Lots of flavoring picked up there. Definitely solid entry in there. So there you have it. The nuts and the bolts are obviously the S tier. I have made the controversial potentially pick that Crispix is the next best thing in this mix. But I couldn't give it S tier because it's not quintessential to this mix, but I think it's better than any of these ones. And I think, these ones solid entries. Chex, could take them or leave them. Certainly don't mind that they're in the mix, but would I rather have just more Crispix, maybe more Shreddies? Yeah, I guess I probably would. Anyway, thanks for watching. I'll be back on the regular programming content later this evening. So catch you then.